That is very possible. A few minutes left. What would you say, does Obama believe strongly in states' rights, or does he believe that the federal government is sometimes more suited to take care of the states' rights issue?
He is a real pragmatist, Obama, and someone who believes the question is what works. So you had a lot of, let's call them 60s Democrats, who greatly distrusted the states and believed that if there's a problem, the national government really is the place for the solution. Then you have the, let's call them 80s Republicans, who believe on principle that the national government would ruin things and the states are the place to go. Obama doesn't have any kind of dogma about the federal government and states. And you can see this in some of his environmental policies, where he places a large room for state authority with federal-state partnerships. So I guess what I'd say about him is that he'd go issue by issue. He's someone who has, by the way, an academic understanding of this stuff, as very few politicians do. And the kind of standard thing to say about states' rights is one, federal involvement in three circumstances. If there's a kind of competition among the states, which makes, for revenue attracting industry, say, which makes it hard for them to solve the problem because they're competing with one another.
Right.
And then you might need the federal government to step in, like for child labor legislation, for example. Another example is where there's an externality, meaning something once
Effects greater than just the state.
Yeah, and the third is where there's some sort of overriding national moral commitment, like let's say the national moral commitment to sex equality, which would override state contrary judgments. So I think that would be the foundation for his approach.
On an issue like education, when you have the huge $60 billion budget for the education department, yet all that essentially does is redistribute it back to the states, do you think that he would believe it's more efficient to maybe cut back on a federal education budget and give the states more of the opportunity to raise their own revenues how they like?
I think on this count he would be a lot like Roosevelt, who was an experimentalist. And Roosevelt thought, with respect to some of his programs, let's try it. If it doesn't work, let's try something else. So I wouldn't think that he would be committed to any particular level of expenditures or any particular allocation of money between the national government and the state for education. The question would be what is best for kids. And if he becomes president, both sides, that is conservatives and liberals, will see some nice surprises.
And one last question, a specific education question. For all liberals or moderate thinkers who believe in science and rational thought, who believe evolution is strictly the way to go, how do you impose that upon a local community who believes in intelligent design or creationism? Because if the federal government comes in the way, mandates that evolution is taught, but they go to a home that rejects it, what's the utility in that anyway?
Well, the one thing I'd add by way of qualification is that I think conservatives believe in rationality too, and every bit as much as liberals and moderates. And conservatives who reject evolution have rational grounds for the rejection. I don't think they're convincing grounds myself, but what's been so interesting in the last 30 years or so is the questions about evolution raised by conservatives and religious thinkers have been thoroughly rational. I guess I think with respect to...
Well, I think the only point I would say is that when they replace that for science with, which is unequivocally more faith-based reasoning than empirical data, that's what I mean by pure rationality.
Good. I take the point. I guess I'd say that if you have a science curriculum, picking up on the point you just made, evolution is the going theory. And there's no reason to think that those who believe in evolution have to deny the existence of God. Most of those in our history who've accepted the theory of evolution have believed in the existence of God. So I guess I think that it is not appropriate for schools to teach ideas about human development which are scientifically irresponsible. And it is true that kids may learn some stuff that the parents don't believe, but welcome to reality. All of us have learned things in school, math things maybe, involving exercises or techniques that our parents think is confusing or can't possibly be true, or things about chemistry or biology, or even sex and gender that can't possibly be true, and we can talk to our parents about those things. But I guess I believe that since evolution is the going theory, that to deny it or to cast scientifically ungrounded doubt on it is not irresponsible. And it is a nice question what role the federal government should have in overseeing this, maybe limited role, but the Constitution has something to say about the imposition of a religious view on an educational system.
Mr. Sunstein, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Great.
Perspective from the law school. Thank you so much for joining us so long.